On October 15, an anonymous tip suggested the agents check beyond the thicket, where the sound of white noise seemed to buzz so loud in one spot that nearby livestock had injured themselves, frightened and running in the opposite direction. Hello, I'm Dr. Katz. Today, we'll be looking at Siren Head, also known as SCP-6789. First contact with SCP-6789 occurred near the Himalayan mountains in 1986. Reports of ear-splitting radio broadcasts in the heavily wooded area, along with unexplained disappearances, caught the attention of the Foundation. The initial unit reported an audio assault that resulted in deafness, internal injuries, or death. Surviving troops were eviscerated by SCP-6789 itself, until bombing methods subdued the entity. SCP-6789 is a towering humanoid, its head shaped in the form of two megaphones pointing askew of one another. Also known as Siren Head, the entity employs audio of all types, including horrific noises, music, or conversations from known and unknown sources. Siren Head can imitate man-made alarms to create panic and drive citizens to and from certain locations. Its physical appearance is that of a malnourished or aged body, with sinewy skin that mimics the tree bark of thick rural areas, where encounters typically occur. SCP-6789 can be confined, but only in soundproof chambers. Following is taken from a text log of an encounter with SCP-6789, where undercover Foundation agents Louise and Brandon, actual names redacted, were sent to investigate a string of missing children in a remote location of Oklahoma. They posed as law enforcement, expecting the status to help. The area was made up of families who had strong roots in the territory. Lineage and tradition kept anyone from leaving, and newcomers were met with so much hostility that they never stuck around for long. The Abrams' teenage son was the first to disappear, and the community was disturbed, since leaving wasn't something people did. But they never reported the absence due to embarrassment. By the time Louise and Brandon were called, 5 sons had vanished, all between the ages of 16 and 17. An interview with the Abrams revealed there were signs of SCP-6789. Before your son disappeared, did you notice any strange behavior? Yeah, we'd all got headaches, more often. I had my wife stock up on aspirin, but it didn't seem to help. Our kid told us he heard weird voices at night, but I figured that was his TV or something. You know how the speakers will fuzz out at random. Did you see a doctor? We take care of ourselves around here. The agents were stonewalled by many of the families. Despite the situation, locals saw the agents as outsiders. When Brandon suggested that the family should relocate, he was met with anger, one man threatening to retrieve his shotgun. The Foundation considered withdrawing until Louise reported hearing audio glitches and scratching one evening. The unnerving sounds came through her car radio and her cell phone, despite the battery being dead. One scientist proposed that Siren Head was being territorial. Maybe it had learned from the behavior of this community. Louise considered the thought, while Brandon scoffed. Siren Head seemingly had access to the sounds and behaviors of many species. Why would SCP-6789 care about something like land ownership? Once Louise heard the strange sounds, the agents continued their investigation. They patrolled the outskirts of the small town, up to the wall of brush that sprang up a few miles into the backwoods, a thicket of dead branches and trees with very little room to breathe. Louise noted that the area was ideal for Siren Head if it played any meaning in the word home. On October 15, an anonymous tip suggested the agents check beyond the thicket, where the sound of white noise seemed to buzz so loud in one spot that nearby livestock had injured themselves, frightened and running in the opposite direction. This was never confirmed, as Louise and Brandon were called back into town. Another youth had disappeared from his bed. The parents were distraught, and neighbors hadn't seen or heard anything. As long as we're proposing theories, Brandon said, maybe Siren Head can broadcast to select individuals. Clearly It, Louise interrupted. Brandon continued. Clearly, it is slowly picking this community apart, one person at a time. With the possibility of selective broadcasting being used to prey on the locals, the agents set about warning the people. Unfortunately, the families responded with the usual stubbornness, doing the opposite of what seemed logical. "Find our kids," they shouted, "or we'll do it ourselves." Louise and Brandon warned them to stay inside no matter what they heard, or to leave altogether. The final report of October 18th describes the night as very still, with little noise to be heard. Both Louise and Brandon were going through files when a voice was heard emitting from the wooded outskirts, so loud it carried across the town. "Mommy," it said. Soon there was another, but the voice was different, older. "Mommy," it said, probably coming from a boy of about 16. The word repeated, and soon more voices were heard calling for their matriarch, some with the voice of a child, some older. They began to escalate, overlapping and quickening. As the agents stood by in disbelief, the Abrams mother ran past, saying, "That's him! That's my son!" Brandon caught the woman by the arm. "How can you be sure?" She explained that both the younger and older cries were her sons. From an early age to the last time she saw him, she just knew. Brandon tried to stop her from running, but the decibels began to rise, and suddenly parents were sailing past him, each one crying about their child's voice. Parents who had given up once again heard their baby's familiar ring. Louise and Brandon knew these people were rushing to their deaths and managed to hold back 2 people while neighbors were torn apart once they passed the thicket wall. Louise describes a tall figure that looked mummified, yet moved its hands in a quick and deadly fashion. Brandon notes that most were dead within seconds of arriving, ripped and shredded, while the voices of children amplified over and over. A surviving partial transcript describes the encounter. "Can't you see it? Let go of me! Don't get closer to it. It's not your son. My son is so tall now. Listen, my baby's saying his first word." The Foundation agents fled, and by the time backup arrived, SCP-6789 was nowhere to be seen. The community itself is gone, and as of this date remains empty. Nothing but rotting farmhouses and the bones of livestock. Thank you for watching.